Hello and welcome to Jessie Bear Book Club. Today we are discussing how Jaehaerys I Targaryen was responsible for the Dance of the Dragons. He was the grandfather of the Green and the Blacks. Jaehaerys and the Seeds of War, not what you normally expect to hear when you think about the most successful Targaryen ruler, the man who built the King's Road and never took a mistress. The Dance of the Dragons is the poetic name given to the dynastic conflict that tore through the nobility of Westeros and can trace its origins back to the prolific lineage of Jaehaerys and Alysanne Targaryen's 13 children, most of which predeceased their parents after having their own multiple children. Jaehaerys' numerous offspring created a complex web of succession that ultimately led to the Green and Blacks vying for the Iron Throne. Jaehaerys reigned for 50 years and saw the birth of several sons and daughters, as well as multiple grandchildren who became the patriarchs and matriarchs of noble families, including the Arryns of the Vale, the Valerians, the Baratheons of the Stormlands. This isn't talked about much in the show, but it is something to take into consideration when you consider the alliances that were made. The seeds of conflict started to sprout as these families, filled with individuals who had claims to the throne in their own right, grew in power and influence, marrying to advantage whenever they could. Rhaenys, the queen that never was, and the sea snake's marriage springs to mind. After the death of his oldest son, who left only one daughter behind him, Rhaenys, Jaehaerys was unable to decide on who should inherit the crown, even falling out with his wife Alysanne over this, because she believed women had the right to inherit. Jaehaerys held a great council, and more than anything, I believe this sowed the seeds of war, because it made the noble families of Westeros feel like they had a right in the say of who should inherit. King Jaehaerys should have put his foot down, with no other person allowed any input in his decision, because this calling of a great council made it so much harder for Viserys to assert his decision that his heir was Rhaenyra 36 years later, because his own reign had been made possible by a great council. Everyone now felt like they should have a say. When Viserys died, the next stable reigning king of Westeros was his grandson Aegon III, who ascended to the throne after the death of his mother and uncles. But his rule was fraught with challenges and discontent among the nobles, setting the stage for the eventual dying out of the dragon rider recessive gene. The direct descendants of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, their great-grandchildren, split into two main branches, the Greens and the Blacks, both houses believing they had the legitimate claim to the throne, which was exacerbated by mental instability and weak rule, leading to long-lasting civil war damage and the dying out of the dragons, because they fought each other in the sky. Also, because none of these branches of the Green and Blacks ever intermarried or had children, this led to the eventual dying out of the dragon rider gene, because there was nobody left to carry it on. This is why Targaryen intermarriage is so important. And this is why I feel Viserys had Aegon and Helaena intermarry. He could have married them to great houses and formed alliances, but instead he had them marry each other because they needed to carry on the dragon rider gene, because they both had dragons. But the main long-lasting problem that Jaehaerys called was the fact that he assembled a great council instead of just saying, I am the king, this is my decision. He set a very dangerous precedent, letting the lords of the Seven Kingdoms have a say in who ruled them, a precedent that continues even up to Robert's rebellion and the War of the Five Kings. And if the Game of Thrones TV show is anything to go by, at the end of A Dream of Spring, we will have another great council. So, Jaehaerys, you may have wanted people to vote but it's a bad idea in a feudal society. But what do you think? Did Jaehaerys Targaryen cause the Dance of the Dragons, or was he just well-meaning? Leave me a comment below with your thoughts. Is a great council a dangerous precedent to set in a feudal society like I believe, or not? I'd like to know. And subscribe. I have a full playlist of A Song of Ice and Fire videos, comparisons between Accursed King characters and House of the Dragon characters. I'm also doing House of the Dragon reviews of every episode, so subscribe for more. Until next time, bye! Don't get eaten alive by a dragon!